After my freshman year of college in 1979, my parents took my sisters and I and a friend of mine who wanted to go down the Colorado River. Up until then, we had only seen the canyon from the rim and just hiked down a little ways. So it was amazing to experience the forces that created that canyon. And it was a life-changing experience for me, and I'm sure it was for everyone else who was on the trip. It was one of the few times my dad ever grew a beard, and we just had such a great time. I wanted to share that experience with Rachel after her 18th birthday. She had just graduated high school as a gift. I wanted her to have the same experience I did, rafting down the Colorado River. When I went with my parents, we went all the way from Lee's Ferry to Lake Mead. It was a 9-day trip with two rafts, and it was a group that Dad belonged to called the Galen Society. So we had a lot of doctors that comprised this group, and Arizona River runners. Back then, they used to let people ride outside on the pontoons down the rapids. And when we were going down Lava Falls, Mom fell in. And it was very scary, but she did just as she was supposed to, dipped her feet down the river, and she was fine. So when Rachel and I did Lava Falls, we wanted to ride up in front of the raft in honor of her. All right, here are the buses. We loaded up and we are about to get going down to Lee's Ferry. Here we are at Lee's Ferry. Clouds are great.
We began our trip at Lee's Ferry, where they took us in a bus, and the rafts were waiting for us. We started out like strangers, and no one like really talked to each other, and it was kind of awkward.
Was when the Mormon Church sent out a lot of those explorers to, find hubs for the missionaries and also for the pioneer system. Anyways, this was one of the first along the river here after the war, and we're seeing a lot of river running and also a lot of railroad expedition. So he had this idea that we wanted to put a railroad system throughout the Grand Canyon.
Ferry itself actually ran up until it was almost completed back in 1928.
We just got done with a nice little monsoon thunderstorm here, and it makes me think about Sally and Rachel, who had just started their trip down the Colorado River today. This is the first time I ever hiked down in the canyon in July. Well, frankly, I try to avoid June, July, and August. July, the monsoons start to fire up, so there's a bit of relief. Plan is simple. I'm going to hit the trailhead tomorrow, and I'm going to spend 2 nights down at Bright Angel Campground. And then I'm going to hike out and spend a night at Indian Gardens. And then my 4th day, hike up out of the rim, hike up to the rim, and then out, and then drive on home. The biggest thing is the opportunity to see Sally and Rachel float by on the Colorado River and hopefully record it on video.
Well, that was a great rapid. I bet you did so.
And as we after we set off from Lee's Ferry in the morning, we went through Marble Canyon for about 20-something miles, and that I think we saw the most bighorn sheep there of anywhere in the canyon. We even saw a mother and a newborn baby. So I thought Marble Canyon was incredibly understated.
I have all my gear packed up into the truck right now and getting ready to head up to the Grand Canyon. It's going to be about a 2.5-hour drive, and the intent is to get to the backcountry office before 4:30, so that way I could pick up or catch the shuttle ride to South Kaibab Trailhead and hit the trail early. Dory, my youngest, is going to be taking care of the house. She's really a big help to help us out. Just above Cedars Ridge, and as you can see, sunrise.
What's that?
Redwall Cavern, and it's a huge cave in the side of the river, and it was big enough to play frisbee there. John Wesley Powell thought you could fit 10,000 people in there.
Yeah, Black's Bridge is the first bridge that they built, and that was primarily for the mules. finally made it down to Bright Angel Campground. It's almost noontime. Right now I found a nice campsite. So I'm getting ready to pitch the tent and square everything away so that way I could take a dip down in Bright Angel. It took a little longer than I figured, but that was primarily because I was actually hanging out with a couple that was from the UK, and made the hike even all that much more pleasant talking to them. And they plan on spending the night at Phantom Ranch itself, so hopefully I'll be able to see them tonight. And after all, the gentleman, Simon, promised me a beer. So right now I'm getting ready to make a home out of this for the next couple of nights.
Running the rapids, it was the most fun you can imagine. There's this anticipation and excitement, and while you're doing it, you get splashed by the cold water and you just have to hang on for dear life and hope you don't fall in. And
depending on where you're sitting in the raft, because there's the shower seats which are near the front, there's the front, and then there's the shower seats that are the first along the edge, and that's just like a constant splashing.
But it was okay to get wet and cold because it was very hot outside. And you could see the contrast that the water made right along the river. There was so much life. If you look up the sides of the canyon, everything is struggling to survive because of the dryness. So you really grow to appreciate water. At mile 52, Nankoweap Granaries, we camped at the beach. There was a large group of boaters who had the main beach, and so we camped downstream a ways. And we got there kind of late in the evening and hiked up. She hiked all the way up to the granaries. I made it most of the way. It's an ancient Anasazi where they would store their grains that they kept safe from the invaders. They grew them downstream at Unkar Flats, and it was an 800-foot climb, very, very steep. So I didn't feel comfortable going up to peek in the granaries because I didn't trust my footing. But Rachel got up there.
Yeah, once you got up to the top, I mean, they ask that you don't touch them, but it was really incredible to be able to like look inside and see how these like ancient walls were still holding up like pretty well. They were still intact.
I love him and hate him sometimes.
Worrisome. worrisome.
Yeah.
The view from Nankoweap is amazing. It's a shot you see on many postcards, and camping at that campground was really cool because we saw so many bats.
This is the day that I get to see Sally and Rachel float down the Colorado River near Phantom Ranch. I just got done with a cup of coffee. It's a beautiful morning, but it does promise to be hot today. Yesterday's high was 103. Today's high, they're forecasting to 107.
The heat was not too much of a problem because you could always just get wet. But the sun, you had to protect yourself with a good hat and sunscreen. You could really feel the difference once you got into camp, especially when we camped near the black rocks, the Vishnu schist. Those put off an incredible amount of heat to the point where some people didn't even want to sleep near them because it was way too hot.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That wasn't quite that bad. It's okay.
When I talked to Sally last, they said that they weren't going to stop at Boats Beach.
There's a proposed development at the confluence of the Little Colorado and the Colorado River. As we went down the river, it was this beautiful turquoise. After the confluence, it was this muddy color, which is the natural state of the river. There's this proposed development there. They want to build a resort at the rim and a tramway down to the confluence. This would just be disastrous for the native humpback chub. As we were going past there, we encountered some USGS, U.S. Geological Survey boats who were doing research on the native fish. They had discovered that that is the only place in the canyon where these native fish that are terribly endangered can spawn.
This is the Little Colorado merging with the main river, and because there's been rainfall, it is pretty muddy.
Mile 70.
No,
The
this is
most
like
technical rapids on the river.
more like 80.
Okay, here we go. Here we go, brochachas. Everybody have hold. Okay. Okay, right off the bat, a little water. Woo! Okay, a little more water. Woo! Pretty cool.
noontime and Sally's river trip hadn't yet showed up. I have no idea where they're at. But I do know this, it's getting very, very hot. Highs today are forecasted for 107 degrees. So I want to give it some thought and then go from there.
When it came time to look for Charlie, we landed at Boat Beach in the afternoon, and I had told him we'd be getting there in the morning, so I was concerned that he wouldn't be there. And I asked our guide if I could go look for him, and at first he said no because he thought Charlie was at Phantom Ranch. And after I explained to him that he was just up at Bright Angel Campground, he said, okay, go ahead. So we ran up there and found him and brought him back to the beach, and that's where we got the few precious minutes of footage that we did. And it was a really awesome experience. Our river guide, who's been done over 200 trips down the river, said he had never had anyone do that before, where someone hiked down and met some of the party in the raft. So that was really cool.
It was really neat that, because, yeah, we were both worried that we wouldn't be able to meet Charlie, but...
Yeah, it was a water refill stop because there was some fresh water available, so our boatmen filled up the fresh water supplies there.
How's it going?
Yeah, I had to. I was like, God, I was going up the back of the boat and crying. I was like, what? Why am I dating him?
Yeah, oh. Man, it was load up. Let's get out of this hot place. Go cool off.
It wasn't too hot where we were.
Mark speaking. I like it.
Hey.
You filming this?
Yep.
Yeah, she's filming.
Our plan came to fruition. Yeah, this is him. Yeah.
Random guy on the beach hugging you.
No, I'm just a random back camper that just walked down here to the beach. Saw everybody here. Well, I have to say that's pretty awesome, Sally and Rachel coming up to the campground to come fetch me, so I got a chance to see them after all. They just simply had a late start running in their trip and such, and when they got to here, it was a cool down and to get water and such, and then they decided to come up there and run up there and get me, so I'm very, very much happy right now. I will. You be safe. Well, now that I had a chance to see Sally and Rachel, I thought I'd celebrate and swing by Phantom Ranch and get a glass of iced tea.
When we would camp on a beach at night, that was just magical to be the first humans, it seemed like, on that beach for a long time. I know it wasn't true, but the water had cleared off the human signs, and you could just see where the animals had been, the lizard tracks and the tracks of the ringtail cat and other animals.
I'm heading out of Bright Angel Campground, and we're going to work my way up to Indian Gardens right now. Time is around, well, it's almost 4:30 in the morning. I want to try to beat the heat. Yeah, here we are at the boathouse right now. Getting ready to head up to the, well, to the top of the Tonto Shelf. Pipe Creek is running. Morning, and welcome to the boathouse. This is the last point where we're near the Colorado River, and then we'll start working our way up to the rim.
Oh, I don't need a first class. I don't ever want to do that.
Okay.
This is looking upstream from Boucher Rapids. And there goes the first boat. Is there a heron?
Yeah, you can't beat Indian Gardens. It's a pleasant little stop. It's basically between the river and the rim on the Bright Angel Trail. It's a great way to take a break and not have to rush from river to rim. That's a challenging hike in of itself when you're backpacking, as well as if you're doing a day hike. So I always try to plan to take a break, spend a night at Indian Gardens. A lot has changed since I first started coming here. They now got the old ranger station open, which provides some awesome reference library and a ranger talk as well. So this evening they're going to have a ranger talk here. So we're home.
Our lunch stop, day 4.
One of the funnest places to stop and the most beautiful is Elves Chasm at mile 117, and it's a very short hike up from the river, very difficult hike down from the rim, but it's got this really amazing cavern behind the waterfall. So you climb back up in this natural cave and up in the rocks, and then you can jump down about 10 feet into a pool. We both did that. Extremely fun. It was easy in my 20s, and this time it was a little challenging. I did it.
Mom was the only of the older generation.
I was the only adult to
the
do
only
it.
adult that attempted.
We've got pictures of when I went with my family in 1979. Some of those photos are of Elves Chasm, and Mom and Dad and Laura, Jenny, and I standing there, and Laura and I standing up in the place where you jump down from. So it had some fond memories of that place that I could recall.
Stand up and come down.
every evening that we camped, there was sometimes you had time to like bathe if you wanted to in the very cold, muddy river, but they would cook these elaborate meals, and sometimes dessert. One night they baked a cake for everyone whose birthday was in July, and I helped frost it. We wrote everyone's name on it, and there was chocolate cake. And then we would all sit around in a circle, especially after like the first couple nights when everyone started to like get to know each other and feel more comfortable. We all sat in a circle, and the guides, Brett and Taylor and Mike, would all tell stories and about past experiences that they'd had, and also funny stories. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, one really cool thing about this group is when we had to load up the rafts in the morning and also unload them at the campsite, Brett said that we were one of the best groups about helping them unload. We would form like a bucket brigade line, and so everybody would help the boatmen offload all the chairs and the cots and the gear for the kitchen and all our personal bags off onto the beach. And so it became a ritual, and everybody took turns. So it worked out really well. I think we got lucky with the group of people we were with. A lot of them were from back east and had never experienced anything like this before. Some were from California, and only one other group was from Arizona, a woman who brought her grandchildren and great-grandchildren on this trip. So we got to know everybody on the trip, and they were all so diverse and brought so much to the experience.
Well, I'm all packed and it's early in the morning, so it's almost 10 till 4, and I'm ready to head up to the rim and call this particular trip a success.
I'm bad at hand games where you have to flip things.
Yeah, it's keeping faster. This is day 5, shooting upstream from our campground.
We weren't too concerned about the monsoons because they provided us with tents and tarps. And usually we were too lazy to set up a tent, so we just kept a tarp near our cot and pulled it over us. It only rained one night. And actually I got a little bit wet, but it felt kind of good because it was so hot now.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Oh, last leg right here. It's nice, yes. You folks take it easy. You guys are a lot braver than I am.
Pretty brave.
I could deal with walking.
I'm only looking into
This is the rapid we went through first thing this morning. Doofendorf. We got stuck on a rock for a second.
stories to tell, folks? This is my victory pose here.
Nice.
So it's a vain thing again. I want to look good.
This is above Deer Creek Falls. We climbed up a trail. It's upstream.
Going through the Grand Canyon on the Colorado was really incredible because you see it from a whole nother perspective. From like it's completely different than the view you get from the top or from any of the trails really, because you get to see the length of it, how it changes throughout, because the rocks change, how, and especially in like Marble Canyon before the Grand Canyon officially starts, and you see how the walls change and how the land around it changes, and it's really incredible.
Yes, it's like seeing history frozen. It's precious beyond compare, the Grand Canyon.
When we stopped at Havasu Canyon for a day trip, it was really difficult to dock the boats because the only place to stop was this like sheer rocky area, and I remember the boatman had trouble securing the rafts, and that was kind of a concern.
Oh, yeah.
But and it was a very steep trail to get to back into the canyon. We all had to, they stressed the importance of watching your footing and being very careful. We also had to hold hands to cross the water because there was a strong history of a strong current there, and they were very concerned about that. The water was
There had been some fatalities there recently. Yes, and it was just as beautiful as ever. I was happy to see that it was still very clean, and the unmistakable turquoise waters of Havasu Canyon are just magical. So and the water was warm and fun to swim in. When we got to the part where the current wasn't swift, they let us play.
Yeah, it was this broad, fairly shallow in most areas. Last day we broke down camp, loaded into the rafts. It was only a short trip down the river to the helicopter pads. It was kind of surreal because it had been a long trip. Everyone was kind of really sad that it was over, because in the beginning you're in the sand and you're dirty and you're like kind of questioning things, but by the end you're toughened and you're used to everything, and all the comforts that like seem normal, like they're not necessary. You get used to everything, and everyone by the last day has really like formed close bonds, and you're all really good friends and feel comfortable and sharing things, and life experiences and giving advice, and then it's over really quickly. There was tears shed, and it was a sad moment to know that it was over because it had been such an incredible experience.
Yeah, I did not want it to end. I remember this incredible feeling of letdown as we were flying out of the canyon. It's like, oh no, I'm leaving paradise now. I have to go face the world out on the rim, as the boaters call it, Rim World. So you're like going from the overpowering bliss of nature and the quiet, gentle nature of the canyon, the beauty of the canyon, and then all of a sudden you're up in Page and you see these motors everywhere and people wasting water, and it was sad. I think that's why it's a life-changing experience, because you understand how much nature, what it's like in its pristine state. As we float on the Colorado's muddy water, observing as much as we can in the fleeting moments, time is solid in these canyon walls, as if time itself was embodied in these solid and minerals that are crumbling. They're minerals of beauty, solace, peril, and life everlasting.